Hello, I'm Geeta Gurumuthy. This is the Iran War Today, our daily briefing, bringing you up to date with all you need to know on day 89 of the US-Israel war with Iran. Let's start with some of today's key developments. Iranian state television says a draft US deal would reopen the Strait of Hormuz, whilst America would withdraw military forces from the area. The White House says the Iranian reports are a complete fabrication. President Trump tells his cabinet they're not there yet on a deal.
They're negotiating on fumes, but we'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish it, maybe we don't.
Israel carries out a new wave of airstrikes in southern Lebanon. The economic impact of the war continues. Energy bills will rise for millions of people in the UK. And we hear from people inside Tehran after the internet is partially restored following a near 3-month blackout. First, the White House is calling Iranian reports about what could be in a possible deal a complete fabrication. Iranian state television says Tehran has received an initial unofficial draft of a memorandum of understanding. Under the framework, Iran would restore commercial shipping through the Strait of Hormuz to pre-war levels within a month. In return, the United States would withdraw military forces from Iran's vicinity and lift a naval blockade. Well, the report said that Iran would manage shipping traffic in cooperation with Oman. The emerging draft comes after indirect talks in which Pakistan has played a central mediating role between Tehran and Washington. Well, the main New York stock markets opened up on hopes of a deal, whilst oil prices fell sharply. President Trump, however, has claimed Iran is negotiating on fumes. During opening remarks at his cabinet meeting, he didn't address the reports on Iranian television, but did say that they are not there yet on an Iran deal.
They want very much to make a deal. So far, they haven't gotten there. We're not satisfied with it, but we will be. We will be either that or we'll have to just finish the job. But their Navy is gone, as I've said 1,000 times. Their Navy is gone. Their Air Force is gone. Everything's gone, and they're negotiating on fumes. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish it. Maybe we don't.
Well, America's top diplomat, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, was sitting next to the president. He said the preference was always to negotiate with Iran.
Diplomacy is always the first option, and we continue to work on that through your envoys, Mr. Woodcoff and Kushner and others, the vice president, who've been very involved. And if there's an agreement to be made, we want that to be made. I think there's been some progress and some interest, and we'll see over the next few hours and days whether progress could be made. I just want to remind everybody, Mr. President, you know this well, you have other options available to you if that doesn't work.
Well, during the questions, President Trump was asked about control of the Strait of Hormuz. Take a listen.
Would you accept a short-term deal that allows Iran and Oman to control the strait? And would they have to open it immediately, or would you be open to that happening over a period of time?
No, the strait's going to be open to everybody.
And who would control it?
It's international waters. Nobody's going to control it. We're going to watch over it. We'll watch over it, but nobody's going to control it. That's part of the negotiation that we have. They would like to control it. Nobody's going to control it. It's international waters, and Oman will behave just like everybody else, so we'll have to blow them up. They understand that. They'll be fine.
Well, let's discuss all this with our White House reporter Bernd Debusman, who's been listening to President Trump and that cabinet meeting. And with me here in the studio is BBC Persian special correspondent Kasra Naji. Kasra, just tell us first of all, what is your understanding from what Iranian television is saying about what's in this deal?
The Iranian television has been denied by the White House, and therefore, it seems that someone in Tehran probably wanted to give it a spin, the Iranian spin, and Washington has flatly rejected it and put it to bed. I've just been watching President Trump speaking at the White House at a cabinet meeting, and he seems, the way he speaks, he says that we're not satisfied with what we are getting from the Iranians, and we don't have a deal, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish the job by attacking Iran, which means to me, which I suspected in the last 24, 48 hours, that nothing is moving on the negotiating front, either through the Pakistanis or through Qataris. Nothing is happening, nothing new is coming out. And President Trump just confirmed it in a sense that nothing has moved, and there are still apart on big issues like the Strait of Hormuz, for example. Strait of Hormuz is the biggest obstacle now. Iran wants control over it. Iran says it has sovereignty over the waterway and wants to control it together with the Omanis. Oman hasn't said anything yet. We don't know where they stand. But the way Mr. Trump has been speaking, he's not sure where Oman is standing, but he basically threatened that they will threaten Oman too if they interfere with free shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So there's a setback in the talks. We're not getting anywhere. There's a deadlock, and we will see whether something happens in the next few days that will open the way for more negotiations or what.
Thank you, Khazra. Let's bring in Bernd de Boezman. Bernd, the timing of all these statements was interesting, wasn't it? Because we heard about this potential Iran deal, this sort of breakthrough, just before the cabinet meeting. But just tell us what we heard in that meeting.
Well, we heard very few details from the White House other than President Trump and other cabinet officials saying that, broadly speaking, they think that progress is being made in these talks and that they believe that Iran is negotiating in good faith. They certainly sounded much more optimistic about a settlement than they did at the beginning of last week, for example, when President Trump said he had been just an hour away from ordering a resumption of strikes. At the same time, the White House is also still dangling what President Trump has now often referred to as option B, a resumption of full-scale military operations against Iran. But certainly for the moment, he doesn't seem to have a particular appetite for any sort of return to the conflict. But there's still many unanswered questions. What exactly happens with Iran's enriched uranium deposits, for example? What happens with the Strait of Hormuz? Certainly there seems to be quite a lot of different points from the Iranian and the U.S. side on some of those major sticking points of the negotiations.
And Khazra Naji, we saw one sort of interesting word change or phrase change used on this. Use of the word tolls versus charges in terms of who could cross or how crossings of the Strait of Hormuz would happen. Just explain why that might be interesting.
Well, I presume in the talks with the Pakistanis, the Iranians, or with the Qataris, are suggesting that, okay, the Americans don't want us to impose a toll system, but we can, call it a charge of some sort instead of a toll for. But it's using words to solve problems that are bigger than words. But at the same time, don't forget, this whole business is not just the Americans who are against Iran's control over this waterway. All those countries, the Arab countries in the southern coast of the Persian Gulf, they have a stake in having free shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, one. And secondly, Iran keeps saying that we can allow various ships to go through, but no military ships. Don't forget that the U.S. has a military base in Bahrain, and the U.S. ships have been going back and forth to Bahrain for many years. So that means that basically that is unacceptable to the Americans also. So this Strait of Hormuz is basically, as I said, it's the biggest problem standing in the way of some kind of a resolution.
Khazra Naji and Bernd de Boezman, thank you both very much indeed for talking us through that today. To Lebanon now, where Israel has carried out a new wave of airstrikes in the south of the country. The army hit Tyre after issuing an evacuation order for people in the city and its surrounding areas. The IDF says that it's targeting Hezbollah command centres there. Earlier, residents of the city of Nabatea and several other towns were also told to leave. Israel's been intensifying its bombing in response to what it says are increased drone attacks by the Iranian-backed Hezbollah group. In a statement, Hezbollah has said that its fighters have clashed with Israeli troops north of the Litani River. Let's go to Jerusalem and our correspondent Amir Nada. Amir, just bring us up to date on the strikes.
Well, we've just had a significant escalation, an announcement from the spokesperson of the Israeli military ordering all Lebanese people in the south of Lebanon to evacuate, to leave an area stretching from the north of the Israeli border, the south of Lebanon, a 40-kilometer stretch. That includes areas, cities such as Tyre, cities such as Nabatea, many towns and villages there, all the way up to the Zahrani River. And already this evening we've had reports of heavy airstrikes in the city of Tyre. This is a city that has been targeted a number of times in recent weeks, but now there is this evacuation order for the entire city. So far, it's unclear how many casualties have been recorded there in the strikes in the past few hours. In Nabatea, as you mentioned, we've had an announcement from Hezbollah saying that they engaged Israeli troops en route. They were trying to push towards Nabatea, and Hezbollah says that they have engaged them. So we are really getting this sense of the expanded ground operation by Israeli troops pushing up north. So far, we still have not seen any attacks directly on the capital city, Beirut. There's been a lot of fear. People who had fled at the start of this renewed campaign by Israel, this escalated campaign, many people have returned. And there is some suggestion in local media, in Israeli media, that while President Trump might have greenlit this new operation by the Israeli military, that he hasn't okayed attacks on the capital Beirut for concern, fear of scuppering the deal with Iran. And finally, of course, Lebanon and Israel did sign a ceasefire extension just 2 weeks ago, an extra 45 days. Clearly, it didn't do anything to stop this escalation in violence, but there is this US-led mediation process. They were due to meet on Friday for further negotiations between the two sides. And according to Saudi media, those talks are still planned to go ahead despite this increase in the fighting and Israel's expanded campaign in Lebanon.
Amir Nada, thank you very much. Well, the economic impact of the war continues to be felt right around the world. Here in the UK, millions of people are going to see energy prices rise by 13% in July as the impact of the conflict hits bills for the first time. The regulator says a typical household will pay £221 more a year, with an annual bill of £1,862. The energy cap affects millions of homes on variable tariffs in England, Scotland and Wales. In India, on Monday, petrol and diesel prices were raised for the fourth time in 10 days. India is the world's third largest oil buyer and normally sources half of its crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz, which is, of course, under the blockade. A fifth of the world's oil and gas usually flows through that waterway. In France, one of the major oil companies, Total Energies, says today it would extend its policy of capping fuel prices at its service stations to €1.99 per litre for petrol and €2.25 for diesel. Let's go live to our cost of living correspondent, Kevin Peachy. Kevin, just first of all, explain a bit more for us the impact of the war on energy bills. We're in the UK and here we're not in the winter yet, but in the UK already concerns that prices could go higher.
Yes, certainly. It's actually a heat wave here in the UK, and so that summer weather will shield some people from the effects of this price rise, which is primarily driven by the sharp rise in the cost of gas. But as you say, Ofgem, which is the energy regulator in the UK, and other analysts have suggested that this price rise, it's 13% starting in July, is likely to persist into the winter, perhaps beyond. And of course, that's all down to international events. And it's the reason why many people are cutting back on their use of energy as much as they can.
And of course, global impacts on this. India, petrol prices rising. Just a reminder of how vital this waterway is to the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely vital. As you say, a fifth of oil and gas moves through the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, it's the countries in Asia which tend to be the most exposed to this, but there is a ripple effect across the globe, or more than a ripple, as we've seen. So petrol prices, of course, we've got fertilizer prices going up, which is affecting the price of food across the globe, and then generally just inflation risks too. We heard from the European Central Bank today saying that the financial resilience of the global financial system is being tested as a result of the impact of the blockade of the Strait. And clearly events can change quickly. We've heard of reports even today that of this potential perhaps peace deal, and that has shifted the oil price. But it's that uncertainty which means that financial planning for governments, for countries, for individuals is much tested.
Kevin Peachy, thank you. Well, finally today, let's go inside Iran. In a moment, we'll have a reaction to the partial restoration of the internet. But first, hundreds of people prayed outside the University of Tehran today. State TV showed the worshippers marking Eid al-Adha, which means Festival of Sacrifice, and is one of the most important festivals in the Muslim calendar. It comes, of course, during this fragile ceasefire, which was reached early last month. So to the joy that some Iranians have expressed at being back online after the internet was partially restored. The internet monitoring group NetBlocks posted this graph showing the difference between today and the shutdown. It says the service remains heavily filtered with new restrictions on messaging and app stores compared with pre-January.
We're seeing that connectivity remains quite heavily restricted. There's the filter net in place, that is Iran's pre-existing censorship mechanism. There are also additional filtering mechanisms in place that weren't there before. For example, WhatsApp was quite popular for people to communicate, and now that is restricted. You have to use a VPN just to use that.
Well, a number of people have contacted BBC Persian to say their home internet is connected, but their mobile internet is still not working. People in Tehran welcome the lifting of the restrictions, which lasted for almost 3 months. We caught up with computer science students Rustin and Panter to see what they thought.
This is 100% a positive thing. The online market is thirsty to go back to its previous state, but its social prosecution that keeps happening significantly harms the online businesses. The businesses highly depend on the internet, and every time these restrictions make life more difficult for them.
I'm very happy that the internet is going to be restored because businesses can get back to normal. I had an online shop for a while and sold products. Definitely it will benefit us. But the only problem is the censorship. If they come up with a good solution and correct solution to this, many problems would be solved.
Well, before we go, we just wanted to update you on the Iranian World Cup team. The national team has been taking part in a training session in Turkey. Before the tournament starts, the squad will fly to Mexico. FIFA has confirmed that Iran's training base will be in the Mexican city of Tijuana and not in Tucson in Arizona, despite Iran having to play all 3 of their group matches in the United States. Mexico's president said her government had been approached by FIFA after the US made it clear it did not want Iran's squad to stay in their country during the tournament. Whether you're joining us on YouTube, TikTok, Sounds, Radio or TV, thanks for your time. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the Iran War Today.